Welcome back to What Can I Paint Next? Section A, Exercise 8. Carrying on with the theme of still life and the object as a subject. And this time we're going to start to look at how to introduce narrative, purpose, reason into why you actually put a still life together. What's the reasoning behind the painting? So the way we're going to do that is actually going right to the beginning of the process and actually starting to think about the objects that we're going to choose, why we're choosing those objects. A good thing to do in this case is to actually think about who's going to be viewing the painting, who you're aiming it at, who's your viewer. The idea is that the painting doesn't start when you actually have the canvas in front of you. The painting starts right at the beginning of the idea, when you start collecting things together that you actually want to paint. I wanted to do something about relationships. I was actually inspired by this first object. Here it is. This is what I was actually inspired by. And it's a little model that myself and my daughter made. I wanted to use this as a starting point for the still life. And I thought, well, it's a lovely thing about relationships. And then I thought, hold on, it's a bit wooden. So then I thought about, well, what about a relationship that isn't working that well anymore? It's got a bit wooden, it's got a bit sticky. So I started looking around for different objects, and this is what I came up with. These are the items that I chose. We have the model that I showed you a second ago. We have an oil can with no oil in it. Relationships need to be working. Oil helps things work. We have a candle that's actually burnt out, or it's getting low. And also the snuffer. And the idea of passing time. So this candle actually was burning at some point. It's starting to run out. Snuffer showing it's actually ran out. And the rose is actually quite a symbolic for relationships, but this one is quite a sorry looking plastic rose. It's a little bit artificial. I chose quite a romantic looking cover for the objects to stand on, and then at the backdrop I found a piece of material with clocks on, which I thought that passing of time was quite relevant with that as well. So these were the objects that I wanted to bring together in one piece, in one still life, to show that passing of time. Now what I need to do is actually arrange them, and I wanted to arrange them sort of going from a candle at the back down to the snuffer at the front. But to actually get it right, you need to actually be setting it up from where you're going to paint it from, because this doesn't look too bad at the moment, but if I go and sit where I would be painting it from, you'll get a completely different point of view. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to put the camera where I'm looking down that way at the still life, and you'll be able to see some things that really stand out. There we go. This is the view that I'm going to get from where I'm sat for this painting. And straight away you can see that the detail on this oil can here is lost. It's the brass of the oil can in front of the brass of the candlestick. So I'm going to move that. And also the rose head here is actually hiding behind the snuffer, and everything's just a little bit congested. And I still want to get that idea of the narrative of the oil can oiling the works. So what I might do is actually get the nozzle of the oil can pointing towards the workings of the model, just to play around with that idea a little bit more. So I'm going to reset the items and show you what I mean. Okay, I've definitely changed some things around here now. I've got the oil can pointing at the workings of the model. I've got the candle, the model and the oil lamp just coming down in a line down here. Quite popular symbolism is having something falling off an edge. So I've got the rose falling off the edge there, and then the snuffer is in there as well. I'm quite pleased with this. I think I'm just going to arrange their heads a little bit more so that they're... actually, no, I quite like that. There's one of them is facing and one of them isn't. They're out of time, and that's the whole point, isn't it? I thought I'll get them in time, but the whole point is they're not anymore. So there's the still life set up. I was quite lucky. I found something to concentrate on. If you're actually struggling for a subject, like I said before, just think about a viewer. Think about somebody you'd like to do the painting for. It could be a loved one. It could be a group. It could be a fan page. It could be someone famous and you want to do something using objects that come together that means something about them. It could be something to do with the environment. It could be something to do with your local town. But if you're struggling, just try and think of a viewer who would actually be looking at your painting. So we're going to start planning this a bit more. We've got the still life set up. Quite happy with the angle that I've got. I know where everything's going. I'm going to use exercise 8 planning sheet to start writing all this down. So what can I paint next? Section A, exercise 8, planning sheet. The objects: candlestick, model, moving model, snuffer, oil can, artificial rose. So description of these: nearly burnt out the candlestick. That's what I really want to capture. Brass. And there's a little bit of tarnish around the bottom as well. That would be an interesting one to capture, tarnished. So the moving model: out of sync, wooden, dusty, old. Those are the things I want to capture there. The snuffer: brass. This is a difficult one to actually come up with adjectives for. I'm going to say tarnished again. All the brass bits are a little bit tarnished. The oil can: old, traditional, empty. It's clean, it's empty. I'm going to put clean in brackets. There's no oil in there. Artificial rose: ratty, discoloured, plastic. Okay, what are these things doing? The candle is standing at the back. The moving model is stuck. That would be adjectives. It's sticking. suppose they'd be interchangeable. The snuffer is sitting. The oil can is pointing at the model. The rose, I think it's the oil can and the rose that actually do quite a lot of the action in this. The others are just sitting in there, but the rose is falling over the front, and the oil can is pointing at the mechanism. And I think it's those two actions. So maybe not everything needs to have an action in this. Right, sources. Still life. Set up in studio with low, warm light. You can actually get some really good lights nowadays. You can get them that switch between cold light and warm light, the LED ones, and they clip on anywhere, and they're fantastic for getting directional light. So they're about £10 each. If you invest in some of those, and they run off battery packs if you need them to, or you can plug them in. So they're fantastic. Right, materials. Acrylics. Yeah, 6 normal colours. I don't want it to be bright colours. Surface. Now I was going to go for a big painting in this, but I changed my mind. I was thinking, oh yeah, I'll do a really big canvas like this one. And I thought, actually, no, it needs to be quite small. So I'm going to do a 30 by 40 again. I even got the big one out, put it on the easel, and then changed my mind. Canvas. Time estimate, 6 or 7 hours. Definitely over 2 days. So, the fundamentals. Line, 3, tone, 3, shape. It's all about the composition. 4, texture. 4, colour. 3, and the composition. 5. This one is all about the composition, how it works together. That's what's telling the story. So you're ready to have a go yourself at coming up with an idea for a still life. Spend just as much time collecting the things and arranging them as you would do choosing which materials, choosing which surface to use. It can be quite fun. You can get some really good ideas out of it. If you want to use something to tell the story, put it in there, see where you can fit it in. You can jam loads of things in there, or you can get it spaced out, depending on what you want to be saying. This is going to be the last exercise on still life in section A. When we get into section B with still life, then we'll start to really get into the why we're painting things. This is just a first step into it. So why we're painting it, think about the viewer, think about what you're trying to say to the viewer, have an idea, and then collect your still life things relating to that idea. Right, I'll get my paints out, get started on the painting. I'll see you in a bit. Here we have the painting for exercise 8. What I really wanted to try and do here is actually use all the items within the still life to capture some sort of story, some sort of message or a narrative. And hopefully I've managed to do that. It turned out not to be as negative as I thought it was going to be. It was at first I thought it would be about an ending of a relationship. But then when I started looking at what I'd actually painted, it had quite a hopeful feel about it. So I've seen it more as a rekindling of the relationship. So I've called it Rekindled. Things like that happen sometimes. You set off in one direction and it changes slightly. So we've got to the end of the still life section. We've used the still life as a noun by doing the clock. Then we did we used some descriptive words, and we found quite an easy piece to describe with the grass head. Then we started looking about what things we're doing within the still life. And I had the mannequin pulling the brush out of the jar. And in this one, taking all that into more of a paragraph now, we're starting to tell a whole story or a whole idea within a painting. Have a go with this now. I hope you really enjoy it. Next will be landscapes. I'm going to get out of the studio. I'm going to get out into the environment and actually paint something in front of me. That's going to be my starting point. Over the course, we'll start to bring it back to the studio for things a bit more complicated. But for now, I'm going to pack my stuff up and go and take a look in the landscape, where again we'll be looking at the noun of a landscape. So thanks very much. Hope you're enjoying the course, and I'll see you soon. Bye.